Hello and welcome to my fireside chat about Gen Z. This is your first video of mine, play this in the background. It's not going to be very well edited, trust me. With that said, please enjoy the video and let's get right into the topic. Gen Z is a very unfortunate generation, you know that? I feel like I don't really have to tell a lot of you that because there's a good chance you are from Gen Z. Because something a lot of people don't like to talk about is Gen Z is pretty varied. You got the early Gen Zs, the mid Gen Zs, and most notably is the awkward Gen Zs. I'm sure a lot of people belong to the awkward portion of Gen Z, not really belonging to the early generation enough to relate to them, but not young enough to actually get with the completely older generation of Gen Z. Unfortunately, they get a lot of the blame. Although, let me let you in on something. That's been a trend for thousands of years. Yeah, contrary to what some people might believe, the blaming of the younger generation has been a blame game for quite a long time. This is nothing new, really. You think the blame game started with smartphones? Oh no, if you go far enough, you'll see people complaining about circuses being a problem. You go back even further than that, you'll have people complaining about books ruining the kids' minds. This is nothing new and has unfortunately been a relic of humanity that's stuck around for quite a long time. Why this exists, I could not tell you. Before Gen Z, it was the millennials that are the lazy ones, and now it's Gen Z. But yeah, I fall into the awkward position myself. Not really young enough to relate to the younger generation, but not quite old enough to relate to the millennials too much. Just old enough to grow up the computers and understand how to use them, and also just old enough to understand the old internet etiquette and the old internet in general. Yeah, I used things like Windows XP back in the day, and even know the horrors of dial-up internet and AOL. So needless to say, I can say that things are definitely different back then. I'm not gonna say they were better or for worse, because every generation seems to think that their generation is the best/worst. Although I'm not gonna pretend like there isn't some kind of entitlement mentality when it comes to the baby boomers and some Gen Xers. I feel like this entire mentality just comes down to the fact that they were raised on very different principles, and that led to a lot of narcissism. Especially the older generation thinking old means wise. No, not even close. Wisdom is the pain you go through throughout your journey to teach the next generation or whoever you pass on the knowledge to never make the same mistakes you did. You had to suffer so they don't. That's something many people seem to forget nowadays, is that we suffer so that the next generation doesn't have to suffer. Alternatively, I do believe this mentality has bred to the opposite extreme as well, as while not every Gen Z or millennial falls under the entitled and lazy, there definitely are a few who fit that bill way too fucking well. Let's not kid ourselves now. However, I'm not gonna pretend like Gen Z is particularly all victims and snowflakes, although this is not entirely their fault. Them not taking responsibility later on and fixing their life themselves is their fault, however. I'll get more into that statement a little bit later. Trust me, it will make a lot more sense when I explain my own personal philosophy on things. As a whole, every generation had their own unique struggles. Some had it better than others, that much you can't deny. But every generation has its struggles and it has its ups and downs. That's the general point I'm trying to get across. The problem with Gen Z comes down to the fact that they're the most vulnerable generation to propaganda, it seems. Far too many young people are falling into the propaganda, and some of it is blatantly obvious. Now you may ask, how am I immune to it then? The simple answer is, I'm not. I am just more acutely aware of propaganda and its tricks. When authority fails you, you begin to start questioning things. Things you don't want answers to, but if you take the right path, can lead you down a better way of thinking. A big reason I'm libertarian has to do with the fact that authority has failed me far too many times, and I've seen the horrible cracks in the system. I became aware of the tricks, the propaganda, but unfortunately far too many people fall into the propaganda machine and end up believing communism is a good thing. Communism is only for losers and dictators, and you, my friend, if you fall under communism, will be the loser. Because do you notice how many professors seem to like communism? Because at the end of the day, they want to be the ones in charge. They're people that are spiteful and bitter about their lives, so they need to make everyone else's lives miserable. The propaganda machine of the mainstream media and many other sources like social media have left Gen Z a hollow husk. A hollow husk that can be filled by pretty much anything, promising good things. It's good that you're waking up to the social problems, you're just not seeing the right solution to the problems, nor are you seeing the full picture as the biggest problem. A big thing being Trump derangement syndrome, something that's more than likely going to be studied for years to come. Now let me ask, if you don't like Donald J. Trump, why do you not like Donald J. Trump? Do you not like his personality? Do you not like his policies? Do you not like how he compromised a bit too much in his first term? Or are you just following what the mainstream media is telling you to think? Far too many people fall under that umbrella. That's not to say the man doesn't have a few things you can dislike about him. There's a lot of things you can dislike about him. But far too many people don't like him because Orange Man bad. He's literally the funny Austrian painter man. Please ignore everything else. Don't ask questions, just hate the Orange Man because politics bad. This is especially prevalent in the work culture. A lot of people call Gen Z lazy. I say they're half awake. They see the bullshit in the system, but they don't know where the bullshit of the system is coming from. They think it's because of the 9-to-5 work culture, but don't fully realize that companies have become so insanely bloated with bureaucracy and middle management, as well as a bunch of red tape regulations that are making it impossible to do anything. Believe me, I've been there with the ghost jobs. That's why I'm doing this, to keep my mind off things. But the problem is the system is not working as intended. Far too many people will blame capitalism but not understand that it's not capitalism's fault. It has more to do with the government. But they're half awake. They know there's a problem, but they don't know what the exact problem is. I can definitely say this is a problem on both sides, by the way. My biggest problem with the left wing is that they're too busy focusing on communism and trying to put dictators in power because they all think that they're gonna be the dictator. My problem with the right comes down to the fact that they're so blinded by simple victories that they refuse to see the obvious things that are hidden in plain sight. Everyone cheers for the death of DEI, but no one's realizing Bridge exists. If you want more information, I recommend checking out the VTuber Kirsha. She's got a lot of information on this, and generally you're gonna want to see it. I grew up in a time where Anita Sarkeesian and Jack Thompson could be compared as the same person. Before it was video games cause violence. Those darn video games. Those Grand Theft Auto 5s and, well, actually at the time it was 4, are causing violence. They're making your kids violent. And then Anita Sarkeesian came along and said everything is sexist, everything is problematic, and you have to point it all out. I've been alive to notice both of these, and I hate these individuals equally for being absolute grifters. In fact, I think a lot of political YouTube is a grift. As much as I fucking hate far leftists because of what the insane lengths they're gonna go to justify their horrible ideas, I think the right way too often gets comfortable with their own ideas and never really steps out of their comfort zone. Because the unfortunate thing, and I feel like a lot of you probably need to hear this, is there's a lot of uncomfortable truths. And you can either embrace it or you can deny it. And if you deny it, you're going to be hurting yourself long term. How do I know this? Because I've been through it myself. Let me tell you, I've been through so much goddamn suffering throughout my life, it's not even funny. And that's not even me being, well, you know, narcissistic. I could have died several times throughout my life, and by God, I probably should have. I cheated death so many times, I now realize I didn't cheat death. Death simply cheated me. I've seen the ups, I've seen the downs. I'm in a unique position in this regard. Now that said, that has severely scarred me mentally over time. Turns out getting a reality check of that caliber is not good for your mental health. I've been insanely depressed at points, to the point where I straight up feel so damn numb. I just didn't feel anything. I didn't off myself because I was smart enough to know that was not a good idea, but I was always in a constant fight between myself. I'd always win out in the end, but damn does it feel like a close fight sometimes. I wasn't morbidly obese, but I definitely was overweight. I felt sad, depressed, and most importantly, lonely. I found peace within myself to truly understand who I am, and what saved me was philosophy. And while this might come off as corny or pretentious, I'm not joking when I say philosophy fundamentally saved my life. I've read about so many great men throughout history that's changed me forever as a person. Even those I fundamentally disagree with, if they have a good point, I'm willing to hear them out. No man is beneath me, no man is above me. We are all equal at the end of the day, because the pendulum always swings back at some point. Probably one of my favorite books of all time is Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, a book that was never meant to be released to the public and was mostly a personal journal of his. Marcus Aurelius was one of the 5 good Roman emperors, and generally one of the most human people you'll ever meet. Throughout the book, it's mostly just him dealing with his daily struggles. Even someone as powerful as the Roman emperor sometimes struggles to get out of bed, and he has to remind himself of that. It's an incredibly sobering thing to know that even those at the higher up can be just as miserable as those below. It's funny, I always misinterpreted the quote, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." I always thought that even though he has to pull that boulder up all the time, it's at least giving him a purpose at the end of the day. It's going to be undone, but at least it gives him meaning. If he ever reaches the top, he loses his meaning. Thus, in a sense, he forever has a purpose, no matter how seemingly meaningless it is. It's still a purpose. Now, that's not what the quote actually means, but I like my interpretation better, so I'm sticking with it. It's also generally my own personal philosophy on things. I've studied a lot of philosophies, from Stoicism, to Taoism, to Nietzscheanism, to even a little bit of Buddhism. And what I can tell you is, the moment you stop caring about things, the moment it becomes insanely liberating. You become free of your metaphorical shackles, as it were. It's why I never settle for being compliant. I'm always trying to improve in that regard. Even if it's something seemingly pointless as a video game, at the end of the day, I'm still improving at something. Getting even small goals done is something truly rewarding. Now, you might say that sounds a lot like Jordan Peterson, and yeah, I fundamentally agree with a lot of early Jordan Peterson's work. Keyword being early Jordan Peterson. He kinda went off the deep end later on. Like a true philosopher, he went insane near the end. I'm always reminded of this one particular quote from Epictetus. If you want to be a writer, write. It's so simple, yet stupidly effective. If you want to be anything, just do what you need to do. Or another quote of his, from this moment on, stop disappointing yourself. Separate yourself from the mob and become extraordinary. And do what you need to do now. He was a slave, by the way. Or even Alexander the Great, the man that conquered the known world. Say what you will about his general tactics and as a leader as a whole, but as a philosopher, he was a man that lived by his ideals and would die by them. When his troops suffered, he too suffered. If they had to suffer, he was going to suffer alongside them. I think one of the greatest moments in history was the time that there was a mutiny going on and they were planning on overthrowing him. To which he simply responded, "Go right ahead. Go home. I'm not gonna stop you. You've all served your part, and you've done us all a great service. You'll all be remembered as heroes and legends alike. Your families will pay no taxes, but tell them that your king, Alexander the Great, sent you. So, what are you waiting for? Go home already. For what have I kept for myself that I haven't given to you? But what have I kept for myself aside from this purple cloak? I've given you all riches, glory, and all of it. You've all earned it. Now if you feel so strongly about it, then go home. Go live your lives." Man's response to a mutiny was, "Fine, if you want to leave, go home, I'm not gonna stop you." Granted, I'm heavily paraphrasing and missing a few key details, but my point still stands. No one is above anyone. At the end of the day, we're all still humans, and no matter what happens, we are all capable of great things. If you're struggling and you feel like nothing's going right for you, you probably need to look in another direction. Try a different thing. If you want to pursue music, pursue music. Don't quit your day job. Use your day job to fund your passions. And who knows, maybe one day your passions will actually come true. And if not, well, you still tried. No one can fix your life but you, and you have all the power to do so. No matter how bad it may seem, no matter how bad of a situation you're in, you can probably get yourself out of it. Even if it takes a long time to do, it's still possible to do. We as humans have done incredible things that many have considered to be impossible. If you've survived the day, you can survive tomorrow. Or as Nietzsche once said, he who has any why can bear any how. It's easy to give up and fall under the propaganda machine. It's easy to do that. It's easy just to give in to your peers. It's easy just to cry about the situation you're in and give up all hope. But never give up hope, my friend. Never. It's the only thing you have. And the moment that flame dies, you keep lighting that flame. I would know. I've been in a similar situation. I don't dare compare myself to anyone else, but the problems I've gone through, the struggles I have, yeah, I have my own problems. But if I can overcome being a fat bastard and having a soda addiction without realizing it, I'm sure you can as well. No matter how difficult it may seem at first, everything is difficult at first. You just have to know where to look. And sometimes that path isn't always obvious, but when you do find that path, never look back. Just keep moving forward. No matter how bad it seems up ahead, keep moving forward. No matter how many small steps it takes, no matter how small the step, keep moving forward. Anyways, that's all for now. And I hope if you're going through something, I hope you persevere. Trust me, I've been there. And no matter how bad it seems, there's always hope. You just have to make the hope.